Welcome to a deep dive that might just change how you think about success, both in the business world and in your own life. We're cracking open, checking in by Stephen J. Cloobeck. He's the former CEO of Diamond Resorts International. Now, you might not think a book about timeshares holds the key to, well, anything groundbreaking. But Cloobeck's philosophy, the meaning of yes, is about so much more than just getting people to buy vacations.
It really is.
It's about going above and beyond in a way that creates genuine connection and value. He went from pre-med, spending time in autopsy rooms, to leading a timeshare empire. I'm particularly curious about this contrast. How does someone go from dissecting bodies to revolutionizing the vacation experience?
It's a question that really struck me, too, as I was checking in. You see Cloobeck's early interest in medicine, that analytical mindset, it never really went away. But it seems like he was searching for a field where he could apply that same intensity of focus to something more, well, human.
And that's where the timeshare industry comes in. But let's be honest, timeshares haven't always had the best reputation. Cloobeck himself paints a pretty unflattering picture of the early days in the book.
He doesn't shy away from the industry's less-than-savory history, does he? That anecdote about developers essentially selling one condo for 50 weeks of the year is a stark reminder of how profit-driven the whole thing was. It was a far cry from the customer-centric approach Cloobeck would later champion.
It almost makes you wonder if his initial struggles in college, which he details quite candidly in the book, were a blessing in disguise. Maybe if he'd aced organic chemistry, we wouldn't have the meaning of yes at all.
There's a thought. But even in those college transcripts, you can see glimpses of the future Cloobeck. He wasn't content to just follow the traditional path. He was already looking for creative solutions, even if it meant bending the rules a bit.
Like that story about him getting in trouble for using the teacher's manuals.
Exactly. He was willing to think outside the box to challenge the status quo. And that's a trait that would serve him well later on, especially when he took over Centera.
That's the part of the book that really grabbed me. Here's this timeshare giant teetering on the brink of collapse, and Cloobeck steps in when everyone else is running for the hills. It seems almost reckless.
It was a massive gamble, no doubt. Centera was facing financial turmoil, internal chaos, and a serious lack of trust from owners. But Cloobeck saw something that others missed: the human cost of this impending failure.
Employees losing their jobs, families losing their vacation plans, and the entire industry taking a hit to its reputation. It becomes more than just a business story, it's a story about people's lives.
And that's where Cloobeck's empathy shines through. He could have easily treated this as a purely financial problem, a spreadsheet to be balanced. But he understood the emotional stakes involved, the real-world impact on individuals.
And that's where his meaning of yes philosophy comes in, right? It's about going beyond just solving problems to creating experiences that genuinely matter to people.
Precisely. The meaning of yes isn't about blindly saying yes to every request. It's about understanding the needs and desires behind those requests and finding ways to exceed expectations.
He seems to take that to an almost obsessive level, at least, when it comes to the details. Like, I'm never going to look at pillows the same way again after reading that story about him slicing them open to compare the filling.
That anecdote perfectly encapsulates Cloobeck's dedication to quality and his focus on the guest experience. He wasn't content with just providing a bed to sleep in. He wanted to make sure that bed was as comfortable and inviting as possible.
It's like his philosophy goes beyond customer service. It's almost an all-encompassing approach to life, isn't it? This idea of finding meaning in everything you do.
It does, doesn't it? And that's where the comparison to Nordstrom comes in with their famously simple employee handbook. Use good judgment in all situations.
But it's about empowering people to make decisions, to think for themselves, to go beyond just following a set of rules.
And that's a radical departure from the rigid, rule-bound culture that Cloobeck encountered at Centera. He understood that to create a truly hospitable environment, you need to trust your employees to make decisions that put the guests first.
But how do you balance that freedom with the need for consistency and standards? I mean, isn't there a risk of things getting chaotic if everyone's just doing their own thing?
That's a great question, and it's one that Cloobeck addresses directly through the story of the Diamond executive who brought cupcakes to every meeting. He used this as a clever analogy to explain the meaning of yes.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break down that cupcake analogy for us.
The cake itself represents the necessary rules and procedures, the foundation that keeps everything running smoothly. But it's the icing, the extra effort and personalization that elevates the experience from good to memorable.
So it's not about throwing out the rule book entirely, it's about finding ways to go above and beyond those basic requirements to create something truly special.
Precisely. It's about finding the balance between structure and freedom, consistency, and personalization.
And that brings us to what I found to be one of the most surprising and, frankly, audacious moves in the book. Cloobeck putting his personal business card on the front desk of every Diamond property. I mean, talk about accountability.
It was a bold statement, wasn't it? It signaled to everyone, both employees and guests, that he was personally invested in their experience.
Like he was saying, I trust my team to deliver, but if something goes wrong, I'm here to make it right.
Exactly. It's a level of transparency and accountability that you rarely see, especially in a company as large as Diamond Resorts.
And what's remarkable is that this approach, this meaning of yes, wasn't just some feel-good philosophy. It actually yielded tangible results. The book highlights how Diamond weathered the 2008 financial crisis, a time when many other companies were struggling to stay afloat.
That's the part that really challenges conventional business thinking, doesn't it? You'd assume that during tough times, companies would focus on cutting costs, becoming more efficient, more streamlined. But Cloobeck doubled down on his commitment to the customer experience, and it paid off.
It's almost counterintuitive, but it makes you wonder if we've been too focused on the bottom line and not enough on the human element of business.
And that's a question that's more relevant now than ever, isn't it? In a world that's increasingly dominated by technology and automation, what's the role of human connection? What's the value of genuine hospitality?
Especially given that statistic from the book about Americans leaving vacation days unused. It seems like we're so caught up in the hustle and bustle of life that we're forgetting the importance of taking time for ourselves, for connecting with others, for experiencing something beyond the everyday grind.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? We have more opportunities for connection than ever before, yet we're also more disconnected than ever.
And Cloobeck seems to be suggesting that the answer lies in rediscovering the power of genuine hospitality, not just in the travel industry, but in every aspect of our lives.
Which brings us to his experience in Georgia, the story of the Georgian Supra.
Ah, yes. That was one of the vivid and heartwarming parts of the book. It really drives home the point that hospitality is a universal language, even in a culture that's vastly different from our own.
Cloobeck was invited by the president of Georgia to experience their traditional hospitality, and it's clear that the experience left a deep impression on him.
That helicopter ride through the Caucasus Mountains, the endless courses of food, the toasts that went on for hours. It's a powerful reminder that genuine connection can transcend cultural boundaries.
And it's not just about the grand gestures, it's about the small acts of kindness, the attention to detail, the genuine desire to make someone feel welcome and valued.
But what about when that desire clashes with the realities of the business world? I'm thinking specifically about Cloobeck's experience on Undercover Boss.
That's where things get really interesting. Undercover Boss is often seen as just another reality TV show. But for Cloobeck, it seems to have been a genuine learning experience, a chance to see his company through the eyes of his employees.
And it wasn't always pretty. That detail about him walking off set due to the intensity of the experience really struck me.
It shows how deeply he was affected by what he saw and heard. It wasn't just about putting on a show, it was about truly understanding the challenges and triumphs of the people who made Diamond Resorts what it was.
And his actions after the show speak volumes. He didn't just go back to his corner office and forget about what he'd seen. He took concrete steps to address the issues he'd encountered, from personally thanking the firefighters who rescued him to helping out employees who are struggling.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And that's something that's becoming increasingly important in today's world, especially as technology continues to reshape the workplace.
Which brings us to a question that's been simmering in my mind throughout this whole conversation. If Cloobeck's meaning of yes is so powerful, how does it translate to a world that's becoming increasingly automated? Are human connection and empathy still relevant in the age of AI and algorithms?
It seems like a real paradox. We're more connected than ever digitally, yet many argue we're losing the art of genuine human interaction. So where does Cloobeck's approach fit into this?
It's a question Cloobeck himself seems acutely aware of. Throughout the book, he emphasizes that the very skills that are becoming most valuable, empathy, communication, creative problem solving, are the ones that technology can't replicate.
It's almost like he's arguing that as machines take over more routine tasks, what will truly set us apart is our ability to connect with others on a human level.
Exactly. And he's not alone in this thinking. The World Economic Forum has identified soft skills like these as essential for the future of work. They argue that these skills will become even more crucial as automation changes the job landscape. So while we might be tempted to think that technology is making human connection obsolete, Cloobeck's perspective, backed up by research, suggests quite the opposite. These soft skills are becoming our competitive edge.
Right.
And, it's not just about being nice or having good manners. It's about understanding what motivates people, what their needs are, and how to create experiences that resonate with them on a deeper level. This reminds me of Cloobeck's example of Michael Milken, the financier. It's not a name you'd usually associate with hospitality.
Yeah.
But Cloobeck highlights how Milken's success was rooted in understanding human potential.
Oh, that's interesting.
Milken believed that true economic growth required not just financial capital, but also human and social capital. He invested in people and their ideas, even when those ideas went against conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to back entrepreneurs who were tackling social issues, who were thinking outside the box. It seems like he saw the meaning of yes, not just as a customer service strategy, but as a way to drive innovation and create positive change.
Precisely. And that's where the concept of entrepreneurship comes in, which Cloobeck champions throughout the book.
It's about encouraging that same entrepreneurial spirit, that willingness to take risks and try new things within existing organizations.
Yes.
And it's about empowering employees at all levels to contribute their ideas, to feel like they have a stake in the success of the company. It's like taking the meaning of yes and turning it inwards, creating a culture where everyone feels valued and empowered to make a difference.
And that's where you see those small but impactful innovations that Cloobeck highlights. Like the employee who suggested offering alcohol-free sparkling cider for non-drinkers, or the one who came up with the idea to paint the outdoor water faucets different colors to avoid confusion.
It's about creating an environment where those little things, those acts of thoughtfulness and consideration, are recognized and celebrated.
Right, because those little things add up. They create a ripple effect that can transform a company's culture and ultimately its bottom line.
But how do you foster that kind of culture in a world that's often obsessed with metrics and efficiency? Doesn't Cloobeck's approach risk getting lost in the noise?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Balancing the need for measurable results with the less tangible but equally important aspects of human connection and employee well-being.
It seems like Cloobeck's suggesting we need a shift in mindset. It's not about choosing between efficiency and empathy. It's about recognizing that the two are intertwined.
And that's where the idea of continuous improvement comes in. It's about constantly looking for ways to make things better, not just for customers, but for employees as well.
It's about creating a culture where learning and growth are encouraged, where people feel safe to take risks and make mistakes.
And it's about recognizing that the journey is just as important as the destination. Success isn't a static endpoint, it's a continuous process of evolution.
Which brings us back to the individual. How do we as individuals apply these ideas to our own lives, regardless of our job title or career path?
You've hit on a crucial point. It's about translating those big ideas into tangible actions. Cloobeck himself provides a roadmap in the book, offering a set of operating principles that guide the meaning of yes in practice.
I'm curious about these principles. Do they feel like a set of rigid rules or more like guiding philosophies?
They're definitely not a checklist you just tick off. They're more like lenses through which to view your interactions, whether it's in the workplace at home or even just running errands. For instance, one principle that struck me was exceed expectations. It seems simple, but Cloobeck breaks it down in a way that goes beyond just doing the bare minimum.
What does exceeding expectations look like in the context of the meaning of yes? Is it about grand gestures, or is there something more nuanced to it?
Cloobeck uses the example of a housekeeper who noticed a guest was struggling to entertain their restless child. Instead of just cleaning the room, she took the initiative to make a batch of cookies with the child, creating a positive memory for both of them.
That's a beautiful example. It wasn't about some elaborate perk or expensive gift. It was about recognizing a need and responding with genuine care. It makes you realize exceeding expectations isn't about extravagance, it's about thoughtfulness.
Exactly. Another principle that resonated with me was empowerment. Cloobeck argues that to truly create a meaning of yes culture, you have to trust your team. Give them the freedom to make decisions and encourage them to take ownership of their work.
That ties back to our discussion about Nordstrom's one-sentence employee handbook, doesn't it? It's about creating an environment where people feel trusted and valued, not micromanaged and restricted.
Precisely. And that empowerment, in turn, fosters a sense of responsibility and accountability. Employees are more likely to go above and beyond when they feel like they have a stake in the outcome.
But let's be honest, not everyone is working in a company that embraces this kind of thinking. How can someone apply these principles if they're stuck in a more traditional hierarchical environment?
That's where the power of individual choice comes in. even within a rigid structure, there are always opportunities to bring a little bit of the meaning of yes into our interactions.
So it's not about waiting for the perfect environment. It's about making a conscious effort to apply these principles in whatever situation we find ourselves in.
Exactly. It could be as simple as taking the time to really listen to a colleague who's venting about a frustrating project, offering to help a neighbor with their groceries, or even just smiling at a stranger on the street.
It's about those small acts of kindness, those moments of genuine connection that can brighten someone's day and in turn make our own lives richer.
And remember, it's not about being perfect. We're all going to have days where we fall short, where we're stressed, distracted, or just not feeling our best. The key is to keep coming back to these principles, to keep striving to be a little bit better each day.
It's about that growth mindset we talked about earlier, embracing the idea that we're all works in progress and that's okay.
In fact, it's that very imperfection, that vulnerability that makes us human and allows us to connect with others on a deeper level.
As we wrap up this deep dive into checking in, I'm struck by how Cloobeck's message transcends the business world. The meaning of yes isn't just a customer service strategy, it's a philosophy for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
I completely agree. It's about recognizing that success isn't just about what we achieve, but about who we become along the way. It's about cultivating those qualities of empathy, kindness, and generosity that make us better human beings, both for ourselves and for the world around us.
And in a world that often feels increasingly divided and disconnected, that's a message we could all use a little more of. So as you go about your day, we challenge you to ask yourself, how can I bring a little bit of the meaning of yes into my own interactions? What small act of kindness can I offer? How can I make someone's day a little bit brighter? We hope this deep dive has inspired you to think differently about success, about connection, and about the power of simply saying yes to the opportunity to make a positive impact on the world.
Thanks for joining us.